The rain hadn't stopped since they lowered Liam into the ground. Clara, this house, the portfolio, the assets. Liam was my son, my blood. The Beaumont legacy reverts to blood now. Arthur Beaumont's words cut through the silence of the estate library like a blade through silk. I stood there, still in my funeral dress, mascara stained and shaking, staring at the man who had just buried his son and was now burying me. The Beaumont mansion loomed around us, all dark mahogany and ancestral portraits, each generation of cold eyes watching my humiliation. The fire crackled in the hearth, but there was no warmth here. There never had been. I don't understand. My voice came out broken, barely a whisper. Arthur, I'm his wife. We built this life together. You were an accessory, dear. Eleanor Beaumont's voice dripped with practiced cruelty as she adjusted her pearls. Liam's mother had always looked at me like I was something she'd found on the bottom of her shoe. A lovely distraction for our son, but hardly family. Not really. Ethan, Liam's younger brother, stood by the window, drink in hand, smirking. Come on, Clara. You had to know this was coming. 5 years of marriage doesn't make you a Beaumont. It just makes you a widow. I felt my knees threaten to buckle. 5 years. 5 years of loving Liam, of building a home, of planning a future. 5 years of Sunday dinners at this very table, of biting my tongue while they looked down on me, of trying to prove I was worthy of their precious son. Liam wouldn't want this, I managed, my hands clenching into fists. He loved me. He would never. Liam is dead. Arthur's words were final, absolute. He stood from behind his massive desk, a king in his castle. And what Liam wanted died with him. The prenuptial agreement is quite clear. In the event of his death without heirs, all assets revert to the Beaumont estate. You'll receive a small settlement, of course. We're not monsters. But they were. They absolutely were. You have 1 week to vacate the brownstone, Eleanor added, examining her manicured nails. That should be sufficient time to collect your personal effects. The Tiffany lamp stays, naturally. That was my mother's. The Tiffany lamp. The one Liam and I had found together at an estate sale. The one he insisted on buying for our reading nook because I'd gasped when I saw it. He'd made up the story about his grandmother to stop his mother from claiming it. Everything was a lie. Or everything was the truth. I couldn't tell any more. What about the firm? I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. Liam promised me a position. I have an MBA. I've been consulting. Arthur laughed. Actually, laughed. The firm is family business, Clara. Beaumont Capital Partners. The name rather says it all, doesn't it? I looked around at their faces. Arthur's contempt, Eleanor's dismissive superiority, Ethan's cruel amusement. These were the people who had sat across from me at Thanksgiving, who had toasted our wedding, who had, just hours ago, stood beside me at Liam's grave. And now they were erasing me. I loved him, I said, and I hated how small my voice sounded. Doesn't that count for anything? Eleanor stood, smoothing her Chanel suit. Love is a beautiful sentiment, dear, but this family deals in legacy, in blood, in permanence. You were temporary. You must have known that. Had I? Had I known, somewhere deep down, that I would always be the outsider? The girl from Brooklyn with student loans and off-the-rack dresses trying to fit into their world of old money and older grudges? As I stood there in that oppressive room, surrounded by centuries of Beaumont wealth and power, I felt something inside me crack. Not break, crack, like ice before a flood. They thought I would accept this, walk away quietly, disappear back into whatever working class obscurity they imagined I'd crawled out of. But they didn't know me. Not really. And more importantly, they didn't know what Liam had left behind. Chapter 2. The First Clue. I didn't sleep that night. The brownstone, my brownstone, where Liam and I had slow danced in the kitchen and made love on every surface, felt haunted. Not by Liam, by the ghost of the life I thought I had. At 3 a.m., I found myself in his home office, the one room Eleanor hadn't tried to inventory yet. Liam's laptop sat on his desk, password protected. His suit still hung in the closet, smelling faintly of his cologne. His coffee mug, the chipped one that said, "World's okayest husband," that I'd given him as a joke, sat beside a stack of unread mail. I sat in his chair and I wept. Not the pretty crying you see in movies, the ugly kind, the kind that comes from your soul when you realize everything you believed was a lie. But then I stopped, because crying wouldn't save me. Crying wouldn't get justice for Liam, who I was beginning to suspect hadn't died in a simple car accident like they'd claimed. I started searching, the desk drawers first. Financial statements, client files, nothing unusual. Then the bookshelf, where I ran my hands along the spines of first editions and legal texts. Behind a copy of The Art of War, my fingers touched something that didn't belong. A phone. A cheap burner phone, the kind you buy at a gas station with cash. My heart hammered as I powered it on. One text message thread. No name, just a number. The last message was sent the day before Liam died. They know. It's over. Protect her. My breath caught in my throat. Her. Me. Protect me from what? I scrolled up. Weeks of cryptic messages, coordinates, times, and one phrase repeated over and over, Project Nightingale. I clutched the phone, my mind racing. Who was they? What did they know? And why did Liam think I needed protection? The office suddenly felt too exposed. I grabbed the phone and started searching more frantically now, pulling books from shelves, checking behind picture frames. There had to be more. Behind a photo of us on our honeymoon in Santorini, I found it. A small leathered journal, thin enough to hide in the wall space behind the frame. My hands shook as I opened it. Numbers, dates, account numbers, and entries that made my blood run cold. AB transferred 2.5 million to offshore account, Cayman Islands, Project Nightingale Phase 2. EB approved falsified reports, FDA violations covered, bribes documented. Cannot do this anymore. They're destroying lives. I have to stop them. AB, Arthur Beaumont. EB, Ethan Beaumont. Liam had been documenting his family's crimes. I sank to the floor, the journal clutched to my chest. My husband, my sweet, conflicted husband who always seemed torn between duty and desire, had been gathering evidence against his own family. And then, he died in a car accident. The room spun. I pressed my back against the desk, trying to breathe, trying to think. Liam's final text message burned in my mind. Protect her. He'd known something was coming. He'd known, and he'd tried to shield me, and now he was gone. I looked down at the journal in my lap. Page after page of dates, transactions, coded notes about bribes and falsified documents. Whatever the Beaumonts were into, it was big, illegal, dangerous, and Liam had been trying to bring them down. A sound downstairs made me freeze. The front door. A key turning in the lock. I shoved the journal and phone under a couch cushion and grabbed a random book, pretending to read as footsteps echoed through the hallway. Clara, Eleanor's voice called out. I know you're here. Your car is outside. I forced myself to stand, to smooth my wrinkled clothes, to walk to the office door on steady legs. Eleanor stood in the foyer, her expression pinched with irritation. "I came to go over the inventory," she said, pulling out a tablet. "We'll need to assess what belongs to the estate and what you can take." "It's 3 a.m., I said flatly. "I have insomnia. Grief, you understand?" But there was no grief in her eyes, only cold calculation. "Now, the furniture in the master bedroom was bought by Liam and me together," I interrupted, "on our second anniversary." "Purchased with Beaumont money," she countered. "Really, Clara, this would be so much easier if you just accepted reality." I stared at her, this woman who had never accepted me, who had poisoned every family gathering with passive-aggressive comments and backhanded compliments. This woman whose son had died trying to expose her corruption. "You're right," I said quietly. "I should accept reality." Eleanor looked surprised but pleased. Finally, some sense. "Now, the reality is that your son loved me more than he loved any of you. The reality is that Liam saw something in this family that disgusted him. And the reality is that I'm going to find out what you did to him." The words hung in the air. Eleanor's face went pale, then red. "How dare you suggest we would never—" "Get out of my house," I said, my voice steady now. "You have no right to be here, not yet. I have a week, remember? So get out. Eleanor, before I call the police." She stared at me, fury and something else, fear, flickering across her face. Then she turned on her designer heel and stalked out, slamming the door behind her. I waited until I heard her car pull away. Then I retrieved the journal and phone and started reading. By sunrise, I understood. The Beaumonts weren't just rich. They were criminals. And Liam had paid the price for trying to expose them. But they'd made one mistake. They'd underestimated the woman he left behind. Chapter 3. The Truth Unraveled. 3 days of digging through Liam's secret files, and my entire world had inverted. The man I'd married, the gentle soul who brought me coffee in bed and cried at dog adoption commercials, had been living a double life. Not the kind with affairs or addictions. The kind where you wake up every morning and put on a suit and tie and go work for a criminal empire while gathering evidence to burn it all down. I sat in a 24-hour diner in Queens at 6 a.m., far from the Beaumont's Manhattan territory, with Liam's ledger spread across the table. I'd spent the last 72 hours barely sleeping, cross-referencing entries, decoding Liam's shorthand, following the trail of corruption that ran through Beaumont Capital Partners like rot through old wood. Project Nightingale appeared 37 times in the ledger. I'd finally figured out what it meant. My hands shook as I sipped burnt coffee and stared at the entry from 8 months ago. Project Nightingale, insurance policy. If anything happens to me, Clara gets everything. Trust documents secured. J. Morrison handling offshore transfer. They can't touch this. They can't touch her. Liam had set up a trust. For me. Hidden from his family, protected by legal barriers they couldn't penetrate. But it wasn't just money. It was leverage. The next entry made my blood freeze. AB found out about Morrison meeting, threatened me, said accidents happen, said Clara could have an accident too. I have to protect her. Have to finish this. I clutched the mug so hard I thought it might shatter. Arthur had threatened us. Both of us. And 2 weeks after this entry, Liam's car went off a bridge. "More coffee, hun?" The waitress appeared with a pot, her tired eyes kind. I nodded, not trusting my voice. She poured and moved on, and I returned to the nightmare on the page. The Beaumont family's legitimate business, venture capital, real estate investment, corporate consulting, was a front. Underneath ran a network of fraud, bribery, and corporate espionage that would make the FBI's most wanted list look tame. They'd falsified safety reports for pharmaceutical companies, taking massive payouts to help push dangerous drugs through FDA approval. They'd manipulated stock prices through insider trading schemes. They'd laundered money for foreign investors who were definitely not following international sanctions. And Liam had documented all of it. I thought about the man I'd loved, how he'd grown quieter over the last year, how he'd started having nightmares, how he'd hold me tight in the dark and whisper, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Clara." I'd thought he was grieving something I couldn't understand. Turns out he was. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Stop looking. You don't know what you're dealing with. Think of your safety." My heart hammered. I looked around the diner. A handful of early morning construction workers, a couple of night shift nurses, the board waitress. No one was watching me. No one seemed threatening, but someone knew what I was doing. I texted back, "Who is this?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Someone who cared about Liam. He wouldn't want you in danger. Let it go." "Let what go?" I typed, my fingers fierce on the screen. "The truth about how he died? The family that killed him?" A long pause. Then, "You can't prove anything. You'll only get yourself killed. Please, Clara, walk away while you can." I almost laughed. Walk away, like I had anywhere to walk to. The Beaumonts had taken everything. They'd killed my husband. They'd tried to erase me. "Tell me who you are," I demanded. No response. I waited 5 minutes. 10. Nothing. I returned to the ledger, my resolve hardening. Whoever that was, whether they were trying to help or intimidate, they didn't understand. I had nothing left to lose. The next section of entries detailed the trust documents. Liam had worked with an attorney named Jonathan Morrison to create an irrevocable blind trust funded by offshore accounts. The accounts held money Liam had been siphoning from Beaumont projects, specifically the illegal ones. He'd been stealing from his family's crimes and hiding it away. For me. But there was more. Liam hadn't just taken money, he'd taken insurance, copies of files, evidence, testimony recordings, everything needed to bring down the Beaumont empire, and all of it was tied to Project Nightingale. All of it would become mine upon his death. "If I don't make it," his final entry read, "Clara has everything she needs. The trust grants her full ownership of the evidence and the funds. She can choose to expose them or walk away rich. Either way, she's protected. Either way, she wins." Tears blurred the words. "Oh, Liam, you beautiful, tragic fool. You thought giving me money and evidence would protect me. You thought it would be enough. But you didn't understand. I didn't want to be protected anymore. I wanted revenge." I pulled out the burner phone and scrolled through the contacts. Only 3 entries, all coded. But one had a note attached. "JM, trust attorney, used in emergency." Jonathan Morrison, the lawyer Liam had trusted with everything. I dialed before I could second-guess myself. It rang 4 times, then a professional voice answered. "Morrison speaking." "Mr. Morrison, my name is Clara Beaumont. I'm Liam's widow. I think we need to talk about Project Nightingale." Silence. Then carefully, "I don't know what you're referring to." "Yes, you do. Liam left me a ledger. I know about the trust. I know about the offshore accounts. I know about everything. I paused. And I know the Beaumonts killed him for it. Another long silence. When Morrison spoke again, his voice was grave. Mrs. Beaumont, are you somewhere safe? A diner in Queens. Stay in public places. I'll meet you in 2 hours. There's a coffee shop on. No, I interrupted. Your office. Official. On the record. I want everything documented. Mrs. Beaumont, if the Beaumonts suspect you have this information, they already do, I said, thinking of the text message. Someone's watching me, which means I need to move fast. 2 hours. Your office. Bring the trust documents and anything else Liam left for me. I hung up before he could argue. The next 2 hours crawled by. I went to a department store and bought a new phone, transferring the number from the burner. I made copies of the ledger pages at a FedEx print shop, sending one set to a P.O. box I opened on the spot and storing another in a bus station locker. If something happened to me, the truth wouldn't die with me. At 9 a.m. sharp, I walked into Morrison's office in Midtown. He was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with kind eyes and the wary look of a man who'd gotten involved in something far bigger than he'd planned. Mrs. Beaumont, he gestured to a chair. I'm glad you came. Liam talked about you often. He loved you very much. Tell me about the trust, I said, sitting. Tell me everything. Morrison pulled out a thick folder. 3 months before his death, Liam came to me. He was terrified. He'd been gathering evidence against his family for over a year, and he believed they were going to kill him. The words spoken so plainly made me flinch. He wanted to protect you and ensure that if anything happened to him, you'd have the resources to fight back or disappear. Whichever you chose. Morrison opened the folder. The trust is irrevocable and completely legal. It contains approximately $15 million in clean money that Liam earned through his own investments, separate from the family business. Upon his death, it transfers entirely to you. $15 million. I couldn't even process the number. But there's more, Morrison continued. The trust also contains a safety deposit box with evidence of the Beaumonts' criminal activities, financial records, recorded conversations, enough to put Arthur and Ethan away for decades. Why didn't he go to the authorities himself? I asked. Morrison's expression darkened. He tried. 6 weeks before he died. He met with an FBI agent. 2 days later, the agent was reassigned to Alaska. Liam realized the Beaumonts' corruption reached further than he thought. He needed ironclad evidence and the right moment. And then they killed him before he could act. I believe so, though proving it. Morrison shook his head. The accident was very clean. No witnesses. No evidence of tampering. What about Arthur's prenuptial agreement? I asked. They're saying everything reverts to the family. Morrison smiled grimly. The prenup is irrelevant. The trust assets were never marital property. They can't touch them. Furthermore, he pulled out another document. Liam made you the beneficiary of his life insurance policy, $5 million. He changed it 3 months ago, after the prenup was signed. Arthur doesn't know. My head was spinning. So I have $20 million? And the evidence to destroy them, Morrison confirmed. The question is, what do you want to do with it? I thought about Arthur's sneer, Eleanor's cruelty, Ethan's smirk. I thought about Liam, trying to break free from the family that had raised him to be a criminal, dying alone on a dark road. I thought about 5 years of being looked down on, dismissed, erased. I want justice, I said. I want them to pay for what they did to Liam. And I want what's mine. Morrison nodded slowly. Then we have work to do. But Clara, may I call you Clara? Once you start this, you can't go back. The Beaumonts will fight. They'll try to destroy you. I met his eyes. Let them try. Chapter 4. The Showdown. The Beaumont family meeting was scheduled for 3 p.m. on Thursday. I arrived at 2:55 p.m. in a car service, wearing a black Armani suit I'd bought that morning with money from Liam's trust. My first purchase with my inheritance. It felt powerful, like armor. The butler, yes, they had a butler, looked surprised to see me. Mrs. Beaumont, I wasn't informed. I'm here for the family meeting, I said, walking past him into the marble foyer. I'm still family. For now. I could hear voices from the library, Arthur's commanding baritone, Eleanor's sharp criticism of the caterer, Ethan's laugh at someone's expense. I took a breath and pushed open the double doors. They all turned. Arthur behind his desk, Eleanor on the leather sofa, Ethan by the bar mixing a drink. 3 faces registering shock, then annoyance, then poorly concealed anger. Clara? Arthur's voice could have frozen oceans. This is a private family meeting. I know, I said, walking to the center of the room. My heels clicked on the hardwood, each step deliberate. That's why I'm here. To discuss family business. Specifically, Liam's estate. Eleanor stood. We've been over this, dear. The prenuptial agreement is irrelevant, I interrupted, pulling out a folder from my bag. Because Liam's major assets were never marital property. They were held in an irrevocable trust that, upon his death, transferred entirely to me. I had the satisfaction of watching Arthur's face go pale. That's impossible, he said. Liam's finances were managed by the family office. We would know about any. Liam managed his own investments outside the family business, I said calmly. As was his right. And he was quite successful. $15 million successful, to be precise. Ethan's drink stopped halfway to his mouth. Bullshit. Language, darling, Eleanor murmured, but she looked rattled. I placed the folder on Arthur's desk. Trust documents, legally executed. I've already filed the necessary paperwork with the state. The money is mine. The life insurance policy is mine. And contrary to your assumptions, I'm not the broke little nobody who married into your family. Arthur picked up the documents with shaking hands. I watched him read, watched the realization sink in. He'd underestimated Liam. They all had. This can't be legal, Arthur finally said. I'll have our attorneys. Challenge it if you want, I said. My attorney assures me it's airtight. Liam knew what he was doing. I paused. Though I'm curious why you're so concerned about money that was never yours to begin with. Everything Liam had was built on Beaumont Foundation, Arthur growled. Our name, our connections, Your crimes? I said softly. The room went dead silent. Eleanor stood slowly. What did you say? I said crimes, fraud, bribery, corporate espionage. Shall I go on? I met Arthur's eyes. Project Nightingale. Sound familiar? Arthur's face went from pale to gray. Ethan set down his drink carefully, all pretense of casual indifference gone. I don't know what you think you found, Arthur said, his voice dangerous now. But you're treading on very thin ice, young lady. Actually, I'm standing on bedrock, I said. Liam kept excellent records. Every transaction, every bribe, every falsified report. He documented your entire criminal enterprise. I pulled out a flash drive, and he left it all to me. Eleanor sank back onto the sofa. Liam wouldn't. Our own son wouldn't. Your son had a conscience, I said, and my voice cracked despite my best efforts. Unlike the rest of you, he tried to stop you. He tried to protect me, and you killed him for it. Now you wait just a damned minute. Ethan started forward, but Arthur held up a hand. We did no such thing, Arthur said coldly. Liam's death was an accident, a tragic, horrible accident. To suggest otherwise is slander. Is it? I asked. Because Liam's ledger says you threatened him 2 weeks before he died. Said accidents happen. Said they could happen to me too. Arthur's jaw clenched. You have no proof. I have his words, his fear, his documentation of how you intimidated him. I held up the flash drive, and I have enough evidence to interest the FBI. Unless, of course, we come to an arrangement. There it was. The real reason I'd come. Not just to confront them, to negotiate. Arthur leaned back in his chair, studying me with new eyes. What do you want? The brownstone. Fully deeded to me, no contest. The Tiffany lamp. The furniture Liam and I chose together. I paused. And the position Liam promised me at Beaumont Capital Partners. Ethan laughed incredulously. You're blackmailing us for a job? I'm negotiating for what should have been mine all along, I corrected. Liam wanted me to have a career. You took that away along with everything else. Now I'm taking it back. And in exchange? Arthur asked carefully. I keep the evidence to myself. No FBI, no exposé, no headlines about the Beaumont family's criminal empire. I met his eyes. You let me live my life with what Liam left me, and I let you live yours. But try to cheat me? Try to harm me? Try anything. And every news outlet and federal agency in the country gets a copy of this. Eleanor looked at Arthur. We should discuss this privately. No, Arthur said, still looking at me. We should discuss this now. He stood, walking around the desk to face me. You think you're very clever, don't you? Coming in here with your little flash drive, your trust documents, your threats. I held my ground as he loomed over me. I think I'm a widow who's tired of being dismissed. You're a threat, Arthur said flatly, and the Beaumonts don't negotiate with threats. My heart hammered, but I kept my voice steady. Then I guess we'll see what the FBI thinks about your offshore accounts. I'm meeting with Agent Richardson tomorrow at 10 a.m., unless you'd like to reconsider. It was a bluff. I had no meeting scheduled, but Arthur didn't know that. The silence stretched. Ethan looked at his father. Eleanor clutched her pearls. And Arthur Beaumont, patriarch of the family, wielder of power and wealth and influence, stared at the woman he'd tried to dismiss as insignificant. Finally, he spoke. You'll have the brownstone, the items you mentioned, and a consulting position, entry level. Don't push your luck. Senior analyst, I countered. That's what Liam promised. Junior analyst. Senior? Arthur's jaw clenched. Fine. Senior analyst, probationary, pending review. Full-time, with benefits, and I want it in writing by Monday. You'll have it. Arthur turned away. Now get out of my house. This house that Liam grew up in, where he learned right from wrong despite your best efforts to corrupt him? I picked up my folder. Gladly. I never want to set foot in it again. I walked to the door, then paused. One more thing. The prenuptial agreement. I want it voided. Eleanor gasped. Absolutely not. That's part of the deal, I said. You tried to use it to erase me. I want it destroyed. Legal and binding. Or the flash drive contents get mailed to the FBI tonight. Arthur nodded once, stiffly. Agreed. I left the library, walked through the oppressive halls of the Beaumont mansion, and stepped out into the autumn sunshine. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely call the car service. But I'd done it. I'd faced them. I'd won. Sort of. Because as I climbed into the car and finally let myself breathe, I realized something. This wasn't victory. Not yet. This was just the beginning. They'd agreed to my terms, but the Beaumonts didn't lose gracefully. And somewhere in the back of my mind, Liam's warning echoed. They know. Protect her. I pulled out my phone and texted Morrison. Deal done. Need you to file everything ASAP, and I need security. His response came immediately. Already arranged. You have 24/7 protection starting tonight. I leaned back in the seat, watching the Beaumont mansion disappear in the rearview mirror. I'd walked into the lion's den and walked out alive. But I wasn't naive enough to think the lions were going to let me leave the zoo. Chapter 5. The Final Victory. Victory, I learned, tastes like bitter coffee at 2 a.m. while you wait for the other shoe to drop. 3 weeks had passed since my confrontation with the Beaumonts. 3 weeks of looking over my shoulder, of jumping at sounds, of wondering if every car that drove past the brownstone was watching me. The Beaumonts had kept their word, legally at least. The brownstone's deed arrived, properly executed and notarized. The prenuptial agreement was voided, and a job offer from Beaumont Capital Partners sat on my desk, official and binding, starting salary well into 6 figures. But I knew them. I knew how they operated, and I knew that people who'd killed their own son to protect their secrets wouldn't simply let me walk away because of a negotiation. So I'd spent those 3 weeks building my own insurance policy. Morrison had introduced me to his colleague, a brilliant investigative attorney named Sarah Chen, who specialized in white-collar crime. Together, we'd spent countless hours going through Liam's evidence, organizing it, verifying it, building a case so airtight that even the Beaumont's expensive legal team couldn't wriggle free. And then I made copies. Lots of copies. Encrypted files uploaded to secure cloud storage. Physical copies in 3 different safety deposit boxes across the city. USB drives with trusted friends who didn't know what they contained, but knew to release them if anything happened to me. I'd learned from Liam's mistake. He'd trusted in his evidence, but evidence is only powerful if it survives long enough to be seen. On a gray November morning, I walked into the FBI's New York field office with Morrison, Sarah Chen, and 37 pounds of documentation. Special Agent Victoria Martinez met us in a conference room, her expression professional but curious. Mrs. Beaumont, your attorney said you had information about corporate fraud? I placed the first binder on the table. I have information about 15 years of systematic criminal activity by Beaumont Capital Partners, bribery, fraud, money laundering, insider trading, corporate espionage. And I believe they committed murder to cover it up. Agent Martinez's eyebrows rose. That's quite an accusation. It's quite a lot of evidence, Sarah Chen said, gesturing to the boxes Morrison was unloading. For the next 4 hours, I told them everything. Liam's secret investigation, the ledger, the offshore accounts, Project Nightingale, the threats, the convenient car accident that killed the one person who tried to stop them. Agent Martinez listened, took notes, asked sharp questions. When I finished, she sat back and looked at me for a long moment. Mrs. Beaumont, are you aware that bringing this forward makes you a target? I'm already a target, I said quietly. My husband died trying to expose these people. If I don't finish what he started, his death meant nothing. We'll need time to review this evidence. Weeks, possibly months. I understand, but I need protection for however long this takes. Agent Martinez nodded. We can arrange that. If even a fraction of what you're alleging is true, this is one of the largest white-collar crime cases we've seen in years. It's all true, I said. Every word. As we left the FBI building, Morrison touched my arm. Clara, you know what happens now, don't you? Once they realize you've gone to the authorities, they'll come for me, I finished. I know. That's why I'm ready. That evening, I sat in the brownstone, my brownstone, with federal protection outside and Liam's photo in my hands. The photo from our wedding day. Both of us laughing, his arm around my waist, the future bright and limitless before us. I'm finishing it, Liam, I whispered. I'm finishing what you started. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered, heart pounding. Clara. Arthur's voice was ice. I underestimated you. I won't make that mistake again. It's over, Arthur. I went to the FBI today. They have everything. A long pause. Then, you foolish girl. Do you have any idea what you've done? The people we're connected to. The reach we have. I know exactly what I've done, I interrupted. I've made sure that if anything happens to me, copies of everything go to every major news outlet in the country. You can't silence me. You can't make me disappear. Too many people know now. You've destroyed this family. No, I said quietly. You destroyed this family when you taught your sons that money mattered more than morality, when you threatened Liam for having a conscience, when you killed him rather than let him expose you. We didn't, Arthur started, but his voice faltered. Yes, you did. Maybe not directly. Maybe you hired someone. Maybe Ethan did it. Maybe it really was an accident, but you'd threatened him so many times he was terrified and distracted. I took a breath. But either way, you're responsible, and now you're going to pay. Arthur's voice turned venomous. You think you've won? You think... I hung up. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From release. From the culmination of weeks of grief and anger and determination. The next morning, the FBI executed search warrants on Beaumont Capital Partners, the Beaumont Mansion, and the personal residences of Arthur, Eleanor, and Ethan Beaumont. I watched it on the news from a secure location, federal agents flanking me. The footage showed Arthur being led out in handcuffs, his face gray with fury and shock. Eleanor following, her perfect composure finally shattered. Ethan trying to run, being tackled by agents in the parking garage. Mrs. Beaumont, Agent Martinez said, appearing beside me. We've made the arrests. The DA is confident we have enough for indictments. Multiple counts of fraud, bribery, money laundering. They're looking at serious prison time. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. There's something else, Martinez continued. We pulled your husband's accident report, got the car examined by independent experts. The brake line showed signs of tampering. We're reopening the investigation as a homicide. The tears came then. Not sad tears. Angry tears. Relieved tears. So he was murdered. We believe so, and we're going to prove it. I thought about Liam in those final moments, his car careening off the bridge, knowing he was going to die, maybe thinking of me. I thought about how alone he must have felt, how terrified, but he hadn't been alone, not really, because he'd left me everything I needed to finish his fight. Thank you, I whispered. The trial became a media sensation. The Beaumont family, paragons of Manhattan society, exposed as criminals. The evidence was overwhelming, the testimonies damning. I didn't attend. I couldn't bear to see them, to hear the details of what they'd done, to face Liam's memory in that stark courtroom light. Instead, I focused on rebuilding. The brownstone became a home again, filled with light and plants and my own choices. I declined the position at Beaumont Capital Partners. Why would I work for a company in criminal proceedings? And instead used Liam's trust to start my own consulting firm. Clara Beaumont Consulting, my name, my legacy. Sarah Chen became my business partner. Morrison handled the legal side. And slowly, carefully, I built something that was entirely mine. Arthur Beaumont was sentenced to 23 years in federal prison. Eleanor got 15. Ethan, who'd been more directly involved in the violent aspects of their crimes, got 35. The day the verdicts came down, I visited Liam's grave for the first time since the funeral. "We did it," I said, placing white roses on the headstone. "They're going to prison. They're going to pay for what they did to you. To us." The autumn wind rustled through the cemetery trees. Somewhere, a bird sang. "I miss you," I continued, my voice breaking. "I miss you so much it feels like dying sometimes. But I'm still here. I'm still fighting. And I'm going to build something beautiful with what you left me, something they can never touch." I stayed until sunset, talking to him, crying, laughing at memories, making promises about the future I'd build in his honor. When I finally left, my phone buzzed. An email from Morrison. "Clara, the estate lawyers contacted me. With the Beaumont's convictions, all their assets are being seized. The court wants to know if you have any claim to your husband's inheritance from the family." I stared at the message. The Beaumont fortune, the real fortune, the one I'd been denied, was now technically available. Liam's share, at least. I could take it. I'd earned it. After everything they'd put me through, everything they'd taken from me, I deserved it. But then I thought about Liam, trying to escape the corruption of that money, trying to build something clean. I typed back, "Donate it to organizations that help whistleblowers and their families. Every penny. In Liam's name." Morrison's response, "Are you sure? That's approximately $40 million. "I'm sure. I don't want their dirty money. I have what Liam built for me honestly. That's enough. More than enough, actually. Because I had something the Beaumonts never did. I had integrity. I had freedom. I had a clear conscience. 3 months after the trials ended, I received a letter. Federal prison, Arthur Beaumont's return address. I almost threw it away, but curiosity got the better of me. "Clara, I'm writing this because my attorney says I should make amends, but the truth is, I don't know if I'm sorry. I'm sorry Liam died. I'm sorry you were hurt. But I'm not sorry for building an empire, for doing what was necessary to succeed in a world that demands ruthlessness. What I am sorry for is underestimating you. You were stronger than any of us realized. Smarter, more determined. Liam chose well, even if we couldn't see it. He would be proud of you. I hope you find peace, Clara. I hope you find happiness. I hope you build something good with the life you've reclaimed. And I hope, someday, you can forgive us. Not for our sake, for yours." Arthur Beaumont. I read it twice. Then I walked to the fireplace and dropped it in, watching it curl and burn. Forgiveness wasn't something I owed them. Peace wasn't something I'd find by pardoning the people who destroyed my husband. But I could find peace in living well. in building something good, in honoring Liam's memory not with vengeance. That was done, but with purpose. 6 months after everything began, I stood in my new office, sleek, modern, mine, and looked out at the Manhattan skyline. Clara Beaumont Consulting had 3 major clients already. We were building a reputation for integrity, for fighting corporate corruption, for helping companies clean up their acts before they became the next Beaumont Capital Partners. My phone rang, a number I didn't recognize, but a familiar area code. Hello, Mrs. Beaumont? This is Rebecca Walsh from Beaumont Capital Partners. Or, well, what used to be Beaumont Capital Partners. The company has been restructured under new management, new name, Walsh and Associates. We're trying to make amends for past wrongs. I listened, curious. We'd like to offer you a position, partner level. Help us rebuild the right way. The board was unanimous. They said if anyone understands the importance of doing business ethically, it's you. I looked at Liam's photo on my desk, the one from our honeymoon, sun-kissed and happy. Thank you, Ms. Walsh, but I have my own firm now, my own legacy to build. I understand, but if you ever want to collaborate, if you ever need anything, the door is open. After she hung up, I smiled. The Beaumonts had tried to bury me, tried to dismiss me as insignificant, as temporary, as someone who could be erased. But Liam had known the truth. I wasn't a seed that could be buried. I was a garden waiting to bloom. And my success, my happiness, my thriving, that was the final victory. Not the trials, not the convictions, not the money or the brownstone or the vindication. It was this: living well, living free, living on my own terms. I picked up my coffee, the good kind now, not burnt diner swill, and turned back to my computer. There was work to do, clients to help, a company to build, a life to live. The Beaumonts were in prison. Liam was at peace. And I was finally, truly free. They tried to bury me. They didn't know I was a seed. And my success was the garden they could never touch.